All right, we're back for the second episode here of Some Nutrition Information with Lauren. And we have 3 questions today. So the first one that we're going to ask, we're going to get right into it, is can supplements provide better nutrition than real food?
So this is a question that I get actually all the time from prospective clients and current clients, and I would say as a general rule of thumb, the answer is no. I think you should prioritize real food, minimally processed, nutrient-dense options, lots of fruit and vegetables, meat, whole grains, all that stuff. You should also think about hydration, sleep, and exercise before you add supplements, because supplements are exactly that. They're supplements. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning, which was perfect timing. James Smith, do you follow him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's a little raw, but basically
Great accent.
He's got a great accent. But what he said was adding supplements to a shitty diet is kind of like going to the grocery store and picking up a really good frosting for a cake that you haven't freaking baked yet. Right? Like that makes sense. Total sense. So in general, I would say no, let's prioritize those things first. But I think there are a couple situations where I would consider adding some supplements or some vitamins, and I will give you the 4 that I thought were most appropriate. So the first one is just your basic whey protein. We kind of touched on that last week, which was going to be like a good quick option to get your protein targets in. It's actually a great protein source, and it's quick and it's easy, and you can carry it with you, and it's kind of a no-brainer. So whey protein would be a suggestion. The other one, I would say, depending on what your budget is, just a general multivitamin. It's kind of like your insurance policy. So even though you may have a very good diet, if you feel like you don't have enough variety, then you might want to consider a multivitamin. They're inexpensive, and it's just going to make sure that you're getting things that you may be missing from an overall healthy diet in general. But the third one I would say would be a fish oil, potentially. Fish oil is also super cheap. Usually I would recommend that if you're not getting at least 2 servings of oily fish every single week. So like tuna, salmon, sardines, anchovies, there's a bunch of other options, but that's something else that I would say could potentially be a supplement if you want and if it's in your budget to do so. And then the fourth one, which is going to be, there's going to be some nuance here, but I would say maybe vitamin D, because if you're in New Jersey like we are, I haven't seen the sun in like 3 weeks. Maybe once in the past 3 weeks. It's gray and cold here. It's like 18 degrees right now. So,
and if you work all day,
yeah,
definitely. If you're stuck in a building all day long, with
for
no
sure. Wait, is that what you do?
That's
well, that's most of us. Yeah. So, I mean, ideally, if you can get 30 minutes of sun a day, you're pretty much going to hit those levels that you need for vitamin D. But that's not really happening right now, especially in the winter. You got to consider your geographic location. Also, skin color will play a role in that too. So I think that potentially supplementing with a vitamin D might benefit you as well. You can get vitamin D in food, and that's like fortified milk and dairy products and, eggs, fish, stuff like that. But I mean, when you're talking about, especially someone in a fat loss phase and you don't have a lot of calorie wiggle room, supplementing with a pill, I think works fine. So that would be my suggestion for like general health and wellness people. My list would be different for athletes, but I think that's another video altogether. So we'll just focus on that. So there's your 4.
Awesome. All right, and we brought up protein as a supplement as we were discussing that. Now, next question, is there a best time for a protein shake? And I guess the 2 examples that we get a lot in terms of questions is, should I have it before or should I have it after? Or maybe some other time during the day?
So I think protein shakes and workouts got really popular, I don't know, 20 years ago. I mean, it used to be...
I'm too young, so I have no idea.
He's not that young. So I think the big thing was getting, slamming back some protein, within 30 minutes of your workout so that you get all the gains, you're in that anabolic window, right? That's kind of since been debunked, I would say. There was actually a really good paper, I want to say it was in 2015 or 2017. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was a review of like 20 studies by Brad Schoenfeld and Alan Aragon, and they said they found that there was basically like a window around your training which would be ideal, and it was like a 4 to 6 hour window. So anytime either before or after exercise, as long as you're getting that like 25-ish grams of protein, that'll kind of depend on your size and your amount of lean mass and all that stuff, but usually before or after, it doesn't matter. If you come to the gym fasted, you haven't eaten since the night before, then that's probably a good situation where you would have a protein shake pretty soon after. Again, because it's like quick and convenient. You don't have to have a protein shake. You can have eggs or, protein pancakes or whatever else you want to have. But I think that if you have a normal breakfast with that same amount, about the 25 grams before, you don't have to have a protein shake right after. Of course, that's goal dependent. And, it's individually independent of everybody's goals, but I think that if you have just a get in shape goal, that's probably a pretty good suggestion. If you have like a serious hypertrophy goal and you're an athlete, again, that's also kind of different, and you have to worry about actually hitting your calories and your macronutrient targets over that 24-hour period, which can also be super important, or actually is mainly important. So.
Yeah, it sounds like if you have all the other boxes checked that are really important, then maybe being concerned with something about having the protein shake and the time of that isn't necessarily as important as everything else.
Right.
All right, so we have a third question, and this is a little bit more closely related to athletes. So we'll have some athletes that will have questions along the lines of, I want to get leaner for my sport. So they play a sport where it's really important for them to be lean so they can run as fast as humanly possible. Carrying extra fat will be detrimental to their performance.
Sure.
Now, but at the same time, they're being told, we need to fuel up for our sports. We have the appropriate amount of energy. So there's this kind of middle ground, I think, that a lot of athletes are at, where they really want to fuel up so they have the appropriate energy to play their sport, but they don't want to be in a caloric surplus because they want to be as lean as possible to play their sport. So shed some light on what you think the right approach would be for athletes in that situation.
Okay, so you're gonna hate me for this, and this is a lot of my answers when I'm speaking to people in general, but the kind of blanket response for most nutritionists, nutrition coaches, even dietitians would say it depends, right? That's a really common response. So some of the variables would be what sport you play, because the demands of sports are all very, very different. What position you play in said sport also makes a big difference on what kind of energy you're going to be expending when you're working out. Obviously, if you have someone who's a midfielder on a soccer field, I mean, they're literally running for 90 minutes, and that's, short bursts and just a general jog usually in between. So that's 90 minutes of pretty high intense activity versus, someone that may be wrestling that I don't even know how long those matches
They have three-minute rounds,
Depends.
So 9 total
Yeah.
minutes of work.
Not that I'm discounting how intense those can be. Those are really intense. But so it kind of depends there. It also depends on what your goals are. So if you have an athlete who's overweight, and I don't know how significantly overweight you're talking, but I think there is a lot of wiggle room with the fueling that you need for your sport, because here's the deal: when you're overweight or obese, even as an athlete, that body fat serves as a massive energy storage to fuel yourself for your performance. So you don't necessarily need to eat as much as you're being told by your coaches that you need to eat. You get the mistake of carb loading, right? When people think carb loading, they think a giant plate of pasta, a pound of pasta with like creamy sauce and stuff like that. That is the wrong way to carb load.
Pasta parties, high school football.
Yeah, I mean, we all did it. Listen, I was a marathon runner, and I would carb load before my long run on the weekend, and I got frigging fat when I was running marathons, right? I was always swollen because I had too many calories. I didn't need a 2,000 calorie dish of pasta. I was like 130 pounds. So it's really easy to overeat when you're carb loading. I think a general suggestion would be anywhere from like 6 to 10 grams per kilogram of carbohydrates per day for athletes. If you don't know what that means, come see me, because that sounds probably like another language for some people when you're in the United States and we use a different measuring system. But I think an often overlooked macronutrient is protein. Protein is so important for literally anyone, but especially athletes. So when you're talking about a good meal, like I would still prioritize protein as athletes, because that's going to help with, tissue turnover and all the things, especially if losing body fat and kind of changing their body composition is a big goal. Protein is huge. So when we're talking about general recommendations, like 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram is usually the general recommendation. I actually like to go by how much lean mass someone has instead of just total body weight. I think that's a little bit more accurate. And I think that, if you have even if we do, okay, let's just say we go 1 gram per pound of body weight, right? So you have a 315 pound lineman, like a high school lineman, that would be like telling them to eat 315 grams of protein. Like that's too much. That's too much, especially someone that has quite a bit of body fat on them. So that's a lot of protein, and they could be getting their calories from other sources and maybe having some flexibility there with carbs and fats. But I think the important part of that is also just to say sleep is really big when it comes to body composition changes. In fact, shameless plug, follow my Instagram, because next week I'm going to do a sleep series about, don't laugh at me, about how important sleep is and how it plays a role in losing lean mass versus body fat, and how it can affect your performance, and some tips and tricks on how to sleep better, because I think we're all guilty of not prioritizing that, but it is so important. So sleep, hydration, a good diet, and then we can talk supplements maybe next time for athletes. But
sure. And real quick, these presentations for next week that we have, the days and times of those, and what topics are we going to cover?
As far as the holidays, okay, so they're the same presentation, but it's just with 4 time options, and basically it's the 6 tips to get you through the next 6 weeks of the holidays, and how to troubleshoot, and some, I think, really useful suggestions that people may not think of when it comes to being more conservative and not just saying screw it and eating everything in sight. I think everyone's going to be very different on what their goal is for the next 6 weeks, and some people still want to not totally blow it over the next 6 weeks, because that's typically, I think it's a pretty common statistic that the weight gain that you see over the course of a year actually happens mostly in that 6 weeks. So there's ways that you can rein it in and have your goals be at the forefront of, even I guess in front of the holiday parties and the wine and the food and all that stuff. So we're gonna talk 6 tips over the next 6 weeks, so you don't totally screw everything up.
Yeah, that's huge. We've seen it year after year with a lot of our adult clients who, they'll kind of go off the wagon in terms of nutrition, but then you'll see they'll start to work out a little bit less because they're busy during the holiday season, but they all of a sudden think that because of the lack of nutrition that almost working out is pointless now, and then that's when things tend to get really ugly.
Yeah, no, it's like a YOLO, and you just totally shit the bed.
Absolutely.
I think something else really quickly to consider is that with the way that obesity is rising, I read something on Lane Norton's blog the other day, and he said that the average overconsumption every day for someone is only 50 calories. 50 calories a day over what would be a maintenance level for you. And that's contributing to that weight gain over the course of the months, the years, the decades, where all of a sudden 3 years go by and you're like 15 or 20 pounds heavier, and people just, they're not losing it, they're not maintaining that weight loss, because it's really hard to do, but a lot of that comes during the holiday season.
Yeah, that's huge. All right, let us know if you guys have any further questions, and then if you want to meet with Lauren for a free 30-minute consultation, reach out to us.
Thanks.